Okay, let's move on to two-dimensional flow of water through soil. So basically, in reality, in many practical situations, such as flow around a sheet pile, under masonry dams, and through earth dams, flow is two-dimensional. For example, the velocity components in the horizontal and vertical directions vary from point within the cross-section of the soil mass. So this is an illustration of a sheet pile. So the flow of water through the sheet pile is two-dimensional. So basically, to illustrate the two-dimensional flow of water, we use a flow net. A flow net is being referred as a graphical representation of two-dimensional steady-state groundwater flow through aquifers. Construction of a flow net is often used for solving groundwater flow problems where the geometry makes analytical solutions impractical. So for this one, so when seepage losses through the ground or through earth dams and levees and the related flow pattern and rate of energy loss or dissipation of hydrostatic head are frequently estimated by means of graphical technique known as flownet. So in flownet, this is the illustration for a flownet. If you're going to observe, of course, you have a sheet pile on this figure. There is a sheet pile. Of course, the flow of water is two-dimensional. So we have here an upstream, we have a downstream. So the difference in elevation between the upstream and the downstream is being referred as H. So this flow net consists of equipotential line and flow line. So this one, the broken line illustrates the equipotential line, and the flow line is this one. This is an illustration of a flow line. So how do we compute for the flow of water through this for a certain soil that has a two-dimensional flow of water? So basically, for FlowNet, it must meet the following criteria. The first one, the boundary conditions must be satisfied. Flow line must intersect equipotential line at right angles. So meaning to say, for this one, the flow line and the equipotential line must intersect at a certain 90 degrees. So this one forms 90 degrees. Then the area between flow line and equipotential line must be curvilinear square. A curvilinear square has the property that an inscribed circle can be drawn to touch at each side of the square, and continuous bisection result in the limit in the point. So basically, for the area between the flow line and equipotential line must be a curvilinear square. So this one, this is a curvilinear square. This one. And the quantity of flow through each flow channel is constant. The head loss between each consecutive equipotential line is constant also. A flow line cannot intersect another flow line, and equipotential line cannot intersect equipotential line. So this one illustrates that, meaning to say that the flow line should not intersect another flow line. So there is no intersection between flow line, and equipotential line must not intersect another equipotential line. So there's one, there is no intersection between two equipotential line, and there is no intersection between two flow line. So flow line is a path followed by a particle of water as it moves through a saturated soil mass. Equipotential line is a line connecting points of equal potential energy. So to compute for the flow of water through a particular soil, the soil can either be isotropic or anisotropic. When you talk about isotropic soil, meaning to say the permeability coefficient in the x and y direction are the same. So if you're going to compute for the flow of water through isotropic soil, this is the formula that you're going to use. You have permeability coefficient times h. That is the difference in elevation between the upstream and the downstream, NF all over ND. So basically, our NF is the number of flow channel, our ND is the number of equipotential drops, or that is the number of equipotential line. So the ratio between NF and ND is called the shape factor. So if the soil is anisotropic, meaning to say the permeability coefficient in the x and y direction are not the same, so to compute for the flow of water through an isotropic soil, you have this formula: H multiplied to NF all over ND multiplied to the square root of K sub X and K sub Z. This is your hydraulic conductivity along X direction, hydraulic conductivity along Y direction, or this is referring to the parallel flow, and this one is referring to the normal flow. So if you're going to you have to take note that flow nets can also be used to determine the uplift pressure at the base of hydraulic structure. So in this concept, we are now on uplift pressure under hydraulic structure. So the general concept can be demonstrated by a simple example. We have here a weir which has a base of 2 meters below the ground surface. The necessary flow net has been drawn, so we have our K sub X, K sub Z is equal to K. So meaning to say the horizontal and the vertical, the parallel flow and the normal flow, they have the same hydraulic conductivity or permeability coefficient. So in this figure, so we have here the upstream side, we have the downstream side. So the difference in elevation between the upstream side and the downstream side is 7. So for this one, if you're going to have the equipotential drop, it is being identified that the equipotential drop is 7. So for this one, our equipotential drop is 7. So meaning to say, for the equipotential drop, you just have to count off equipotential drop. You have to count off the number of spaces between equipotential lines. So this is our you have to count off equipotential drop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 7 equipotential drops. So you just have to count off the number of spaces between the equipotential lines. So in horizontal direction, you count off the number of spaces so that you could have the value for equipotential drop. So for this example, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So from that, of course, we have identified that the difference in elevation between the upstream side and the downstream side is 7. And of course, the head loss here is, for each potential drop, is H all over 7. So H all over 7, so that gives us, this is our 7 over 7, so it gives us 1. So basically, this is the difference in elevation over the equipotential drop. So that is 7 all over 7, which is equal to 1. So we have drawn here our figure. This is our original figure. If we're going to have the figure B is our the uplift forces under hydraulic structure. So if you're going to obtain the uplift pressure at each point, meaning to say, for this one, point A, point B, point C, point D, point E, point F, these are the points A, B, C, D, E, F. If we're going to compute for the uplift pressure on each point, so meaning to say, for example, uplift pressure at point A, so what you will have to do is, you're going to have your H, the difference in elevation between the upstream and the downstream, plus from this point towards the location of point A, this point, we have 2 meters, so that is 7 plus 2, so you have 9. Then minus the position of point A is this is the first point, so that would be minus 1 times the pressure drop, which is 1, so it gives us, so that would be 7 plus 2 minus 1 times 1, so that is now, then the result, multiply that one by the unit weight of the water. So that would be the uplift pressure at point A. So if you're going to have point B, what would be the uplift pressure at point B? Same procedure, so that would be 7 plus 2, so H plus this distance, so that would be 9, minus point B is on second point, so minus 2 times the head loss, so times 1 for each the head loss for each potential drop. So the head loss for each potential drop is 1. So that would be 7 plus 2 at point B. At point B, that would be 7 plus 2, this distance towards this point, minus point B is the second point, minus 2 times the head loss for each potential drop times 1. So the result, multiply that one to the unit weight of the water. For example, at point F, uplift pressure at point F, so that would be 7 plus 2 minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So at point F is on the 6th point, so that would be minus 6 times 1. Then the result will be multiplied to the unit weight of the water. So that is the result here, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Each of those multiplied to the unit weight of the water, and you have now your uplift force for each point. So let's have a sample problem. So basically, for the masonry dam shown in this figure, our K, which is our coefficient for permeability, is 5 meters per day. Determine the seepage flow per unit width of the dam in liters per meter. Determine the uplift pressure at A and B in kilopascal. Determine the uplift force per meter of dam. Assume that the uplift pressure under the dam varies uniformly. So for this one, you're going to obtain first letter A, since you are going after with the seepage. So let's find the value for ND. ND refers to the pressure drop. So you're going to count of the number of spaces in between this point, in between this line. So number of spaces between this line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that is the number of ND, or pressure drop. Number of flow channel, NF, you count off the number of spaces in between this line. So that will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is NF is equal to 4. Meaning to say, for ND, you count off the number of spaces in horizontal direction, and F we count off the number of spaces in a vertical direction. Since we have now the value for NF and ND, and we have known that H is equal to 18 and K is equal to 5, since you're going to make use of the isotropic flow, you have your horizontal and vertical permeability coefficients are the same, so substitute. So that is now 27.78 liter per meter. Now the pressure head at point A and B, you have to compute first for the pressure drop. Of course, we know that pressure drop is H all over ND. H is the difference in elevation between the upstream and downstream, so that is 18. Our pressure drop is 9, so we have now 2 meters per drop. The pressure head at point A would be equal to this 18, which is the difference in elevation. Actually, this is our figure, so that is 18, since this is our point A. So that would be 18 minus, you're going to have here minus 2. 2 meaning to say pressure drop multiplied to point A is located here, so at first point, so that is times 1, so that is 16. 18 at point B, this is point B, which is located here, so the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so that would be 18 minus 2, the pressure drop, times 8, which is the position of point B, so that is 2 meters. Uplift forces, pressure at point A at point B, the result here multiplied to the unit weight of the water, so that gives us 156.96 and 19.62. Then the last one, uplift pressure per unit length of the dam. So you consider this pressure diagram, so that is piece of A and piece of B. This is in trapezoidal form, get the area of this, so that would be piece of A plus piece of B, the result here divided by 2 times this width times 1, because you consider a per unit length of the dam, so that would be times 1. You simplify this one, and you get now your uplift pressure, which is equivalent to 2,648.7 kilonewton. So that ends our discussion for module 5, permeability. So I hope you get a full understanding on the concept of permeability. Thank you.